Welcome back to the IU427 garage, everybody. I had planned on doing the dash in this video, but it's overcast, gray, and shitty today. So I can't lay the foam-backed vinyl out in the sun to soften it up, so I'm just gonna postpone that. I'm gonna continue working on wiring today. And I'm gonna show you some of the stuff that might really bite you in the ass later on if you don't catch it while you're wiring. Now I realize a lot of you guys aren't, wiring gurus. You aren't wiring stuff all the time, and so I'm just gonna tell you to check the best you can as you put the connectors together to make sure that the wires are the same on both sides, meaning the labels on them are the same on both sides. Because as I started wiring for the fan today, a problem came up and I had to move some terminals around. So come right back, I'll show you what's going on here. The fan wires in the driver's side foot box to take them over to our relay. Because if you remember, I had to combine two wires here in the harness in order to get to our 40 or 50 amp ampacity that we need. So I combined the fan thermo switch wire, which we don't need, and I combined that with the actual fan circuit. The number 10 ground I actually have coming over here to a chassis ground that we welded onto the chassis here. So no big deal, right? I combine those and they come back over here into the foot box. So I depinned those two wires out of the connector, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to join them together here. I'm going to put a WeatherPack connector to be able to easily disconnect these, and then tie on a number 10 wire going into our relay, which I have right here. Now I'm going to have to mount the relay somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to mount this yet. So when I figure that out, obviously I'll install it, but I wanted to get some of this wiring kind of squared away inside the foot box. Well, when I did, I pulled out the first two wires, which should have been the blue for the fan and the green for the thermo switch. And what I found was that two of the wires in this connector were backwards. And so it was this green wire here for the thermal switch and the green right here for the turn signal. Now, I don't know which side's miswired. I didn't repin these. But what I had to do here was this green wire that's now in this terminal right here used to be, get that gasket back on. It used to be in this slot right here. And when I tested the wire that I thought was the thermal switch, the first one I pulled out, which in turn was this one, I couldn't get continuity with my tester. So I started poking around and touching the other terminals, and I found out that the wire that was tied into this terminal was the one I needed. Now, you can see on this side, it's not marked anything. Visibly anyways. It might be farther back in the harness. And when you look at this one right here, this green wire, no matter how I turn the wire, it doesn't have a marking on it. Well, when this all got put together, these two wires were reversed. And had I tied power to this, I would have been sending fan voltage to our front driver's side turn signal. And that's no good. So I guess what I'm getting at is it might be worth the extra effort to check some of these plugs when you're putting the plugs together, especially if there are more than one of a particular color wire in that bundle of wires that tie in the connectors. Because, these Ron Francis harness, they're probably assembled by hand. Someone pins those in. They're not done by a machine. And so it's just a green wire. And so if there's no label on it, there's a good chance that it could get mixed up. Now, I've had it in the past where right on this connector, this is the connector that goes to the headlights, the black and the brown have been mixed up. Now, that can cause tremendous problems when you go throw power at that, because now you're throwing voltage directly to ground. And there's a circuit breaker built into that headlight switch, but it's not going to take multiple resets before it burns out. So take some time as you're plugging these connectors together for your front harness, your rear harness, your headlights, all that kind of stuff. Make sure that the wires that go in are the wires that are going out the other side of the connector, because it could cost you. If your car is completely put together and you've put one of these connectors in a spot where you can't get to, what are you going to do? That's why I told this particular car owner, you can see one of the straps is still here. He had put straps in on this side. Well, there's no access cover here. So, if these connectors are both on this side of that 3/4 inch tube, see, because he had this one, let's see, I can't even get it through there now. He had this one like this up here. So if those connectors are on this side, you're not going to get to them to unplug them. So we're moving those to the other side so they're accessible. And then I'm checking all these as I pin them together. So when we go to put power to this stuff, we're not going to have to worry about, the wrong circuit activating something that it's not supposed to, or having a dead short to ground for our headlights. I'm fairly certain as I put all these connectors together that now we're not going to have any issues. Now, I've said in the past, I've always had at least one issue with every Ron Francis harness that I've done. And I'm not throwing shade at Ron Francis. This harness, actually, for what it is, for the novice, it's the easiest, best way to wire one of these cars, because you're not having to do a whole lot of splices in order to get stuff wired in. The dash connectors are already on there for the most part. The only thing you really have to add if you want is weather pack connectors on all four corners for your headlights, your tail lights, and your marker lights. And that's about it. The stuff under the hood, where you're tying into some of the sensors and stuff like that. I mean, I kind of go overboard and that I kind of wire the whole harness. But that's primarily to keep everything clean and for serviceability for the car owner in the end. I mean, he knows that wire goes directly from that point all the way back to his gauge. He doesn't have to worry about hunting through with it, changing colors and wire and all that. It goes from point A to point B, and he doesn't have to worry about it. So that's why I do that. But for the most part, the Ron Francis harness is a pretty good harness for these cars because everything's labeled. If you're going to do a bunch of custom stuff, then you might want to go with like a universal harness from Painless or one of those. American Auto Wire is another good one. You can even go on to eBay or Amazon, and you can get like a 10 circuit universal harness. You can use that. The place where you're going to run into issues is when you go to wiring your turn signal switches and you're using taillights that only have one wire for both stop and turn. Now you're going to have to figure out your own way to make all that stuff work. So I'm going to dive back into this. I'll probably bring you back in just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and tie in my turn signal and my hazard light, indicator lights and stuff like that into the main harness, and I'll bring you back and I'll kind of show you how I do that by depinning those wires. And depinning, all it's going to do is just going to give me the opportunity to put shrink tubing over the outside of the wires once I solder them into their harnesses. I know I didn't show this yesterday. Oh, by the way, it's the next day. When I pulled off the connector for the fan, the tab broke. And this really pisses me off because it's a brand new clip and it should be soft and pliable enough that I should have been able to just reach behind, pull the thing down, and get the fan disconnected. And now I'm going to have to replace this, but these are the times in which we live, everybody. The plastic parts that are coming from overseas aren't, they ain't what they used to be. So this is our stock fan connector that we ordered up for the Ford style cooling fan that we have on here, and you can see the tab broke off right there. So I'm gonna have to order a new one and tie those in. I had to pull off the split loom that I had on here, and I had it strapped on the back of the fan and everything, so I had to pull that down, and now I got to order another connector to put that on there. And it's on me. I should have been more careful, but I'm not going to, obviously I'm not going to charge the car owner for that because it was my own doing that broke the clip, so he shouldn't have to pay for it twice. But I'm hard at work behind the dash right now, and I wanted to stop and bring you guys back to have a look at this stuff and see where I tied in. And I'm going to give you an alternative to doing it this way, but I've been doing it this way for so long that my muscle memory kicked in, and I had forgotten that I could have just done it another way. So here is what everything kind of looks like here. And what I've done is I've grouped together the wires that are going to go to our turn signal switch. So the white and the yellow here are for our turn signals in the back, essentially. But they're going to go to our turn signal switch. This brown wire is our horn wire, so that's going to go to our turn signal switch. And then this gray wire here is the power to activate the turn signal switch. So these four wires are all going to go to our turn signal switch, and then we're also going to have a trigger wire that's not in this bundle that is going to activate this relay. So this relay is going to be for our high and low beams, and this is just a standard 30 amp. This one's from KC Lights, but it's just a Tyco relay. And I'm going to tie this brown wire here, which is for the indicator light on the dash, into this brown wire that I pigtailed off of here. And I'm going to put a male and a female spade connector on those so that they're disconnectable at this point right here, just like the wires that are on the relay. That way, if this has to come apart in the future, then at any point in the circuitry, it can be disconnected and the parts can be serviced. So that's where I'm at on that. So I'm trying to get the turn signal switch already, and you can see I've already tied in the green and the blue along with the pink power wire for our hazard light switch, which is up here. So that's all fine and good. Now what I could have done, those same wires are all available in this connector down here. So this connector right here is for the hot rod. It's for the 33 hot rod and the 35 pickup. And this is the GM style steering column connector. But if you look, all those wires that I just mentioned, the brown, the green, the blue, the pink, gray, yellow, white, and the black are all in here. So I could have just used this, but I'm so accustomed to dieting this out, meaning I take that connector back to the point where it comes out of the split loom, and I take all those wires, I cut them off, I bend them over, and I put heat shrink on them, just like I've done to these wires right here, which go back to the transmission, because we don't need speed sensor wires since we're running a GPS speedometer from Speed Hut. So we don't need those wires. So on each side of the weather pack connectors that goes to that rear harness, I've cut those, I've bent them over, and I put heat shrink on the end of them because I don't need them. Our speedometer is going to work with or without those. It doesn't matter. So I've eliminated them from the equation. So I've eliminated those wires that go down through the transmission tunnel. I mean, they're there, but we're not going to use them. So by doing that, I just found it was easier to cut that connector, the 5-pin weather pack connector, completely out of the equation. And now we have a single 4-pin connector, and then we have a single 3-pin connector that go to the rear of the car for all of our functions, our turn signals, our hazard lights, our tail lights, and our fuel pump. Now you can see these are those green and gray wires where they had a connector before. Now we don't need them, so I bent them over and I capped them off, made them safe basically. So looking at this connector right here, I generally use, when using the other turn signal switch, so one of Russ's turn signal switch, I would use one of these 5-pin connectors because you need power, which is the gray. You need a left, which is the yellow. You need a right, which is the white. And then you need a wire for the horn power. It's actually a horn ground. And then the wire that goes out to the horn, so a 5-pin connector. Well, our switch has 2 extra switches on it. It has one for the horn, so we'll use that connector to get the horn power, the horn ground, and then the wire that goes to activate the relay. And then I need 2 more wires for it'll be a ground, and then the wire that's going to activate the high-low beam. So really, I only need, if I use the same ground for both the horn and activation of the high-low relay for the headlights, I only need 6. So I'm just going to probably add a single-pin weather pack to that, and that'll make the turn signal completely disconnectable. So I hope that all made sense. I'll probably go over all of this because I'm going to do a full install of our turn signal switch on a Mark IV, but this is the first opportunity I've had to actually put one in. All of our products thus far have been beta tested by owners, customers. And so they've done the installs, and therefore we got our pictures from them. We got the procedure. We gave them a basic outline, and they helped us refine the instructions that you guys get with the turn signal switches. And we're doing the same thing with the coupe guys. So I'll go over that when I actually install one in this car, and I'll do one on the coupe when I install one in the coupe. The difference is the coupe one isn't going to stay because that owner already has one of Russ's original turn signal switches for his car. So I'm just doing a mock-up installation in his car for the instructions so you guys can all see how it's done. But that's what I'm working on with that. I was a little bit disappointed in that front clip. You guys probably couldn't detect it in the video yesterday, but it had broken just prior to me showing you the wires that were in that. And I just did a really good job of not showing the broken clip in that part of the video. But I figured no sense in avoiding it. You know, I try to be nothing but truthful on the YouTube and Rumble platforms because it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do you guys any good to realize that, you know, shit happens to me too. I'm working out here in the shop and something breaks. And it's not that something breaks, it's how you handle it. So rather than making a big deal about it last night, I had a chance to kind of calm down and cool off. And I'm just going to order a new connector. I think they're $4 or $5. I've got other stuff that I need to order for Mrs. IE 427's car anyways. And I've got a discount code for Rock Auto. And you know how that goes. 5% almost covers the tax on the stuff you buy, but whatever. So that's what I'm going to do on that. But I did want to show you one thing over here. On every car that I've built since, probably Ed and Kathy's car. I think Ed and Kathy's car was the last one that I left the inertia switch over on the driver's side. Ed's car didn't have a whole lot of complicated wiring on it. We didn't have a heater and stuff like that. So I didn't feel the need to move it. But in every car since, we've had so much stuff going on behind the dash. I've moved the inertia switch to the passenger side, and I put it right here. So all I do is I lengthen the wires. You can see that. I do a good job of keeping them all kind of lashed together, and then the switch is over here. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, Frank, this is a carbureted car. Why do you need an inertia switch? Well, you don't. I mean, it's got a mechanical fuel pump. So if the car flips over, the fuel isn't going to shut off other than the motor shutting off. And it should do that on its own because the floats in the carburetor are going to be all out of whack and the thing should just die. However, you could hook up that inertia switch if you really wanted to. You could wire it into the coil because the relay that is in the car for the fuel pump could easily be, not easy for me to say, it could easily be rewired to the power for the coil. And therefore, if the car was to sustain a big enough jolt from the back where the inertia switch activated, it would shut the coil off and kill the motor. So that's one way to do it. You could also, you know, if you had a carburetor car and an electric fuel pump, you could wire it into an electric fuel pump. Most of those are going to be an inline pump, you know, like a Holley red or a Holley blue. And you could wire it into that too. So there are many ways to wire it in. I'm giving this owner every opportunity down the line if he wants to, you know, change things, upgrade to EFI, that everything in the car is all available. All he has to do is find the wiring that we've left for him, tie into it, and he's done. So I think that's where I'm going to leave this one. I don't know how long the video is, but this is 2 days in the shop, and I have a bunch of stuff to get to tonight still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the video here. As always, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.